what's up guys? David here for another quick little video, and behind me is Smurf. Now, a lot of people who are new to the channel probably are going, oh, you know, it's just another Mustang, I don't really care that much and all that good stuff. However, Smurf plays a huge part of my YouTube career and a huge part of how I grew. It provided me with the first car I really started to modify, and it provided me with that experience, and also just seeing a car come together as my own and be different from other people. I always exaggerate this to anybody in the car community that wants to get involved to really make their car their own and have a vision. To a lot of people, yeah, it's an ordinary Mustang and everything else, but that doesn't count as sentimental value, and that it wasn't always like this. It's actually pretty different from the day I first got it. So ladies and gentlemen, with a big announcement at the end of this video, here is the history of the Smurfstang. The history of my Smurf Mustang is an interesting one. So I had a 4.6 3-valve Mustang GT from 2006. The thing was an absolute boat. But you know, having a convertible was fine, but I was just kind of over it and I wanted a hard top, and I was more focused on performance at the time. I looked into a whole bunch of cars I could trade in for it at the time. But then Ford, out of left field, came out with the Coyote motor. I test drove one and I was in love instantaneously. You know, dual overhead cam, 5 liter, a true 5 liter. The old one was a 4.9, but they called it a 5.0, and the thing was pretty quick from the factory. I figured it'd be a good platform to start with to make it a little bit quicker. So after getting the car from Ford, I drove it back and instantaneously put it up on ramps. I already had Roush Axleback exhaust sitting in the garage. That's how excited I was for this car. Put the exhaust in the car, filmed it, did a little bit of a review of it, and put it up on the internet. The biggest impact Smurf ever had was that it was my second car review I ever did. And with that second car review, it was actually viewed pretty frequently. It was something I wasn't used to. The review did great, so I decided to show off a little bit more of the Mustang. So after that, I really didn't do a video on it, but I did an intake and a tune. The tune was from American Muscle by Bama, and the intake was a JLT intake. The car automatically revved a little bit higher, and it pulled much harder in the top end of the rev range. Then I decided to get rid of that terrible wheel gap. The wheel gap from the Mustang from the factory looks like it's a 4x4 truck. So I went with the Ibach Pro Kit springs just to make it a little bit more aggressive of a stance. There's still a little bit of wheel gap, so you can get over everything and you don't scrape, which is super nice. So once that was done, the center of gravity of Smurf was a little bit lower, but I definitely needed to make sure I got in alignment first. So after the intake and the tune was installed, the next thing I did was the Boss 302 intake manifold. It was recently released by Ford, and I was incredibly interested if it made a difference. I made a full video review about it and really expressed what it did. The Boss manifold more kind of changes the character of the car. It adds a little bit more horsepower, but it's definitely more of a character-based mod. Instead of being instantaneous like the stock manifold, which kind of peaks with its torque, the Boss manifold builds, almost like a poor man's turbocharger. After that was the off-road X-Pipe. And the off-road X-Pipe being one of the toughest installs, since I only had ramps on me at the time, we forgot our jack stands and everything else, it paid off pretty well. The response of the car was definitely quicker because you had free-flowing exhaust. I still had the Roush Axlebacks on the back, so the thing sounded ridiculous. A lot of talk on forums and on the internet about how much wheel hop these cars have, which is something I have to totally agree with. The live axle is actually surprisingly good at handling, it's just when you hit bumps. However, the wheel hop could be fixed some. So I went with some lower control arms, and that install went pretty smoothly. I was actually pretty surprised how simple it was. All you had to do was take the wheel off and switch them out. The wheel hop was definitely reduced and the car launched much better. The next modification I did was the Barton short throw shifter, and this is by far the notchiest shifter I've ever driven. It doesn't matter what car I've driven or reviewed, this is the notchiest shifter I've ever seen. It has a 40% reduction rate. and the 2-post bracket makes it really clanky. Hear that? The only bad thing about the Barton was that you heard a lot more in-car noise, so you heard the transmission working a lot more, which made me a little more paranoid thinking something was broken. But at the end of the day, it was just more noise. So when it came to performance and minor bolt-ons, I was actually pretty happy. The only thing was, my car just still looked like an ordinary Mustang. There wasn't really much about it that was, well, different. So I figured it was time to change the look of the car a little bit. The little ducktail that came from the factory wasn't bad looking, but I just wanted something to differentiate mine from others. So the first thing I did to the car was I put a California Special spoiler on the back. After that, I instantaneously got the Boss 302's diffuser. So I already made my Mustang kind of a hybrid of sorts. I had the California Special spoiler and the Boss 302's diffuser. A good amount later, we did the Roush Chin spoiler, and that thing has been pretty great. However, it's definitely been a burden when you bottom out. Throughout the Mustang's life, I did update videos from 10,000 miles later to 50,000 later to then 70,000 miles later. This car has been amazing. It has done so well. It's only had one scare, and that was during the Rally North America movie. Alright, so Brandon is in the store over there, but you might notice my hood's popped. The reason the hood is popped, well, it's about to be closed, thank the Lord. We had a tune scare. Here in Kansas, there's no 93 octane we could find, period. So we were like, okay, no big deal, get out my tuner, go to 91 octane. Well, I had the door open by accident, and one thing you never do when uploading a tune is have any sort of voltage interruptions. So it was telling me I had the door open and the voltage dropped while I was uploading the tune, and it cut out and tried to save my ECU, and the car would not even turn over. But thankfully, after calling Bama, calling my dad in case we needed some help, all kinds of stuff, everything is okay. The car is running on 91 octane. Thank God. The ECU had locked me out because I couldn't find 93 octane, which I was tuned on at the time. So I decided to go down to 91 octane. However, forgetting to close my door, there was a shortage in voltage and it locked me out of the ECU. So I could have possibly been stranded in the middle of Kansas. Thankfully, American Muscle and SCT hooked me up and they told me what I needed to do to fix the car. We finished the rally on time. The history of my Mustang has been an amazing one. I've done so many road trips in this thing that I've lost count. People ask me all the time why I haven't sold it. Well, one is I love it. It's a mascot to me. It's been around since the dawn of this channel and it has become kind of my brand if you think about it. I get tweets all the time saying, David, I think I saw you because I saw a Grabber Blue Mustang, and unfortunately I have to tell them I probably wasn't there. But Grabber Blue is now engraved in my heart. People always ask me why I'm painting the 240SX Grabber Blue. It's because I love it, and it's a part of my history. So why not keep going with that history? So on the dyno, after all of these mods, the car came out consistently between 415 horsepower and 425 horsepower. I was extremely happy with this number, and I kind of decided, okay, I'm done. I don't need to do anything else to Smurf. It's reliable, it's fun, and I'm content. In my 70,000 mile update video, I then said this. Go pretty fast. It's quicker than a lot of things on the road. It does a 12 3/4 mile. I'm good. You know, like I don't need to go any bigger. And when you have that mindset, you're very much at peace. This statement was 100% truth. Smurf was my baby, and I was totally happy with it. Then I did something called Tail of the Dragon. When I did Tail of the Dragon, I realized that the handling could be a little bit better on the car, and maybe it was time to revisit Smurf. So then I decided to get better wheels and tires, then some sway bars. With the combination of these two things, the handling was now much better than it was. Smurf has been a great car to me, and it's been the ultimate daily. However, there is one more chapter left for this car.
I see that you feel